What's up YouTube, Capital G here, checking out the brand new MekLord support coming out of the next legendary duelist of Gloom. If you guys don't know much about MekLords, I'm not a very big fan. They're from the 5Ds era. They've always been really clunky to me. I think they're kind of comparable to like Time Lords because they're both played by villains and they're supposed to be an anti-synchro archetype. Just go watch 5Ds if you really want to know about this archetype. But they weren't that successful during the 5Ds era. The only card I really like in this archetype is MekLord Emperor Weisel. That card has always been really cool to me, but not the easiest thing to summon. Anyways, let's go ahead and check out the new support. My expectations were by far the lowest when it came to this archetype, way lower than Jinzo or the new merit cards. Anyways, MekLord Astro Dragon Triskelion is a dark level 10 machine monster. The entire archetype is machine based, by the way. 3000 attack, and it cannot be normal summoned or set. It must first be special summoned from your hand by banishing 3 MekLord monsters with different names from your graveyard. First effect, when this card declares an attack, you can equip 1 monster from your opponent's extra deck to discard. Second effect, this card gains attack equal to the total attack of monsters equipped by the first effect. The third effect says, while this card is equipped with a synchro monster, it gains attacks, or it can attack up to 3 monsters during each battle phase. So as you can tell by the third effect, they're sticking to the original theme of hating on synchro monsters. And honestly, I think this is a pretty simple card to understand. I think it's just a big battering ram at its core. Basically, Konami wants this card to potentially end the game. Under a best case scenario, you should probably be able to end the game with this card. You attack your opponent and take basically the biggest thing they have in their extra deck and slap that sucker onto this guy. Hopefully it's a synchro monster in which you gain the attack of that monster, and then you're also going to be able to, beat up a lot of their monsters and then maybe use your other monsters to end the game. Honestly, it's not that complicated of a card. I would have liked to see, I don't really think that this card needed negation, but it would have been nice to have kind of like an Armati type of effect, something that made it so your opponent couldn't use any effects during the battle phase or, until the end of the damage step or something like that, because at its core, this card is just a beat stick. So I feel like it should be as effective as possible at being a beat stick. Anyways, we'll go to a monster that I absolutely love. I think this could be the best card in the archetype, honestly. This is MekLord Nucleus Infinity Chord. It's a dark level 1 0 attack monster with 0 defense as well. First and third are hard once per turns, but you can use them both in the same turn. First effect says, if this card is normal or special summon, you can add 1 MekLord spell / trap from your deck to your hand. Second effect, this card cannot be destroyed by battle once per turn. Third effect, if this card is destroyed by a card effect, you can special summon 1 MekLord Emperor from your hand or deck with a different attribute from monsters you control, ignoring summoning conditions. Also for the rest of this turn, you can only attack with 1 monster. Alright, so this card is awesome. It's a game changer. This is how you take a crappy anime deck and actually start to make it pretty respectable. The first effect is obviously good. Who doesn't like monsters that instantly pay for themselves the second that they hit the field? I mean, basically just being a rota search for any of the spells and traps in the archetype that's going to be useful no matter what archetype you put that effect into. The third effect is pretty good as well. Basically, if this card is destroyed, it can float into one of those Mech Knight Emperor monsters like Weisel that I talked about earlier, a card that I think is still pretty dang good by today's Yu-Gi-Oh standards, because Weisel can suck up a synchro monster and it has spell negation every single turn. Weisel was always a great card. It was just pretty damn difficult to get it on the field. Now if I can just special summon Weisel from my deck, now we're actually getting somewhere, because I can get a good monster and get negation and potentially suck up one of your monsters. This card is really good and it works with the continuous spell that I'm going to talk about next. The second effect, I guess, could be useful under certain situations. If this card's in attack mode, it's probably not going to be useful because it has 0 attack, so it's almost like your opponent's attacking you directly. But if you 1-for-1 this thing out in defense mode, then it could kind of be annoying for your opponent, and it could be obviously a little bit of a hassle. I really do like the fact that, let's say you normal summon this, you activate the effect. If your opponent uses something like a Solemn Strike, or they use some type of monster negation that also destroys this card floating into a Weisel is absolutely insane to me. So this card feels like anytime you normal summon it and its summon is not negated, it's basically going to be, or it's going to put you in a really good position. This is an automatic 3 of, no questions asked. The continuous spell card And I'm jumping to that because obviously it has synergy with the Infinity Chord we just talked about. The continuous spell card is MekLord Assembly, and you got a hard once per turn on the second and third effect, but use all these effects in the same turn if you want. The first effect says when this card resolves, you can add one MekLord monster from your deck to your hand. There you go. If nothing else, we're automatically looking at a Fire Formation Tinky for the MekLord archetype. That basically means if I don't say another word about this card, play 3 of it just because of that. The second effect says you can discard one card, then target one monster you control, destroy that card, or destroy that monster. Third effect says if a face-up MekLord monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target one other face-up spell/trap on the field, destroy that card. All right, this is another card that's basically the complete package. The first effect, as I said earlier, it's just basically a Fire Formation Tinky, so automatically play 3, and it's searchable by Infinity Chord. So basically, Infinity Chord is a +2 just on normal summon or special summon. The second effect is also pretty good because now you actually have ways of destroying your MekLord monsters, which can trigger some of the Emperors and can trigger some of their effects as well. And the third effect kind of capitalizes off the second effect. If your opponent either destroys your MekLords by card effect or battle, or if you destroy them, you get to pop potentially their face-up spells and traps. Honestly, I wish it would have been face downs as well, because if you're playing against a control deck, they're probably not going to have that many face-up spells and traps outside of maybe field spells. But I mean, I'm not going to complain. Like that would be kind of like crying over spilled milk, honestly. I feel like that's an effect that is going to be useful. It just may not be as reliable as you would like, but it is free destruction potentially under certain situations. And honestly, I think that this is another card you're just going to play 3 of, because if nothing else, just getting the monster searches is going to be good, but also having the ability to, trigger your MekLords is going to be awesome as well. Anyways, let's go back to the monsters. The final monster is MekLord Army Arsenal of Obligato. It's a level 4 light machine monster, 1200 attack, 1800 defense. It has 2 effects. Use them both in the same turn, but they are hard once per turn. First effect says during your main phase, you can destroy this card, and if you do, special summon 2 MekLord Army monsters from your deck in defense position, except more copies of this card. But you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn, except machine monsters. Second effect says if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can activate this effect. During the end phase, inflict 100 damage to your opponent for each MekLord monster you control. Okay, so that second effect is absolutely hot garbage. It's honestly, like, I don't even want to dignify it by even talking about it, but 100 damage per monster? Really, Konami, in 2020? I mean, Trickstars were doing like 200 per effect, and those guys are from like, what, 2017 or something like that? Anyways, the first effect is obviously the more important effect of this card. Basically like a Lone Fire Blossom, I guess you could say, or kind of like a rescue cat type deal, where you're basically destroying this card and then you're summoning 2 more monsters from your deck. The problem is the Mech Knight Army monsters are pretty terrible. I mean, they're from the 5Ds era, and damn, they feel like they're from the 5Ds era. Also, those monsters have to go in defense mode, so they're not even like actual threats to your opponent. Granted, you could still go for like link summoning and stuff like that, but you are restricted or you're restricted to machine monsters only. I think you could run this card, but man, I just don't like the idea of running a bunch of other Mech Knight Army monsters, because I really don't want to draw those. They're not that good. You guys can look them up. They're really kind of bad by today's standards. I don't really know if you have to play this card. I'm going to be honest. I don't actually think I would play this card, because the other stuff that I have to run to make this card useful doesn't feel like it's worth the reward, honestly. Anyways, we have a quick play spell. This is MekLord Control. It's a hard once per turn. It says target 1 MekLord monster you control. That monster's attack becomes equal to the original attack of all MekLord monsters on the field, but also your opponent takes no battle damage from battles involving that monster until the end of this turn. Damn it! So close to being an OTK card, and they ruined it. Second effect says if a MekLord monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. I always like those graveyard protection effects, but damn, man, they were so close to like making this kind of like a win condition. Seriously, I think this would have been really nice for one-shotting your opponent, because this is going to be a blind go second deck, and I feel like they really undercut this card's usefulness by making it so that, the monster that you crank up to like 10,000 attack, it doesn't do any battle damage. And finally, we have a trap card. This is Cruel Mercy of the MekLord Astro. I'm pretty sure they're referring to the new boss monster we just talked about. Normal trap card, hard once per turn on the first and second effect, but you can use them both in the same turn. First effect says target 3 MekLord monsters in your graveyard, each with a different name. Either add those monsters to your hand or special summon them, ignoring summoning conditions, but you cannot special summon monsters until the end of the turn, or excuse me, till the end of the next turn, except machine monsters. Second effect, if you control a MekLord Astro monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard, destroy 1 synchro monster your opponent controls, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to its original attack. Okay, so this card feels very powerful. It feels like a very strong one-of in the archetype. If you look at the first effect, it's always going to be a +2 because you're either getting 3 monsters on field or you're getting 3 monsters to your hand, and obviously those are both very good situations because 3 monsters on field can just kill your opponent, but 3 monsters in hand means that you can use those for like discarding, for more pops, for more combos and stuff like that. And obviously you can use those for discard fodder and other things like that. Also, I mean, you're locked into machines, but I don't really think that that's that big of a deal. The monsters that are special summoned from the graveyard can still use their effects. They can still attack. You still get a battle phase and all that good stuff. So you can do a lot of damage with that. And then the second effect, it's basically just for your big dumb boss monster battering ram type deal. I mean, if your opponent has a synchro on field and you do have that guy on field, your opponent should really be in trouble because then you just banish this card from the graveyard, you get a Volcasaurus or a Ring of Destruction type effect where you blow that monster up and you're getting burn damage. This definitely feels like a one-of in the archetype. It feels like a card where if you resolve it, you should win. I mean, seriously, you're getting 3 monsters on field potentially, or 3 monsters to hand. If you can't win under that situation, you probably just like, I don't know, you just figured out a way to lose the duel. But anyways, this support was marginally better than I thought it would be. I mean, I really expected all the cards to be trash, and some of them were actually pretty legitimate. So whatever you guys think of the new MekLord support, you leave that in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already, and turn on that notification bell for daily videos.